Hey guys and guys, welcome to part 2 of the Q&A session. Obviously, if you didn't watch the last video, every year I do speeches at Oxford Brookes University. They go around the room with a hat, they put their questions in the hat, they write them down on a bit of paper and then I answer them. Sadly, a lot of the time, not all the questions get answered because of the length of time that I've got at the university. However, I always take the questions away and make sure that I answer them on my YouTube channel. And this is part 2 of the last video. So I hope you enjoy. So question number 1. Academic level due to your needs or the provision? So I think this is getting at what I said about the academic level of myself. Wasn't probably as high as other people, that I would always agree with. And I think what the question is really alluding to is that due to the environment or is that due to the provision that the teachers were offering? And also I think the question is also getting at my needs as well, so my autism, ADHD, OCD and epilepsy. And honestly, I don't blame the teaching provision whatsoever. I think the support I went to at my school was second to none, my last school especially. Maybe the other schools I would actually question the teacher provision, what they actually taught me and what I was being supported with in order to achieve those targets. I think you could question. My last school I went to though, the support was second to none, and I think it was just down to the environment I was in that I couldn't learn. It was a very disruptive environment. As stated in the last video, sometimes there'd be 12 fights a day in a classroom of 6 people. It was quite hard to learn in. But I wouldn't also rule out my needs. You know, I know that my autism can affect how I learn things. I know that my OCD can affect how I go through life, same as my autism. I know that ADHD, I found it very hard to pay attention in class. And I know if I get too stressed and my blood pressure was to go high, I know that my epilepsy probably would have a thing to say about it as well. However, I would like to point out that some of the smartest people in this world have been diagnosed with conditions and have been suspected of having conditions. So I wouldn't say just because you have a need or a condition that you're automatically not as smart as somebody else. In actual fact, I'd argue the opposite. I think in my case, it was more down to environment and not having that early intervention, which was key in those areas. And I think that's what impacted me the most. Question number 2. Please tell us more about the National Autism Society and the Diana Award. So many of you may not know, if you follow my stuff, you probably do. I'm an ambassador for the National Autism Society, and also I am an ambassador and a recipient of the Diana Award, which is the most prestigious award that you can win from 9 years old to 25. I got that on the award of the basis of all the autism work I do. So I go off to schools, universities, I speak up in Parliament about autism, raising awareness and understanding, and also speak to companies about how we can better their infrastructure and better their support that they can have in the workplace to help autistic people. So I do a lot of work around that. The National Autistic Society I really got involved with because I started a campaign with them around employment. At the time there was only 16% of autistic people in full-time work. The statistic now from the ONS is actually saying that there's around 30% of autistic people in any form of work, which is still not a great statistic because we at the National Autistic Society gauged it was 16% of autistic people in full-time work, and that wasn't including other statistics like part-time work and volunteering work. Now what the ONS is saying is there's 30% of autistic people in any kind of work. So if you was to drum those statistics down, it doesn't look great anyway, because even if you said, okay, so there's 16% of autistic in full-time work, that still means you've got a remainder of 14% in volunteering or part-time, which isn't brilliant. So with that being said, that's a lot of the work I've done around with the National Autism Society. I then started becoming more of a speaker for them and having these roundtable meetings with MPs to better that statistic, make sure that statistic goes up, that there are more autistic people in work. And obviously now I just raise awareness for school children, for teachers, for parents, for carers, for anyone that is in the world of autism. I try and do my bit for. And because of that, that was where the Diana Award came around. Third question. How did your OCD, particularly the excessive hand washing, impact your school life, and what helped it? So when I was at school, I had an obsession with poison basically, which then turned into germs, which made me wash my hands regularly because one, I was scared of getting poisoned, and two, I'd be scared if something bad would happen to anyone, which ended up with my hands being red raw. And I always remember a teacher spotting it at the time. Miss Anderson was brilliant, and she got me this hand cream, and she said, this does, if not better, what washing your hands will do. That will get rid of the germs, and it won't harm your hands as much either, because my hands were very, very bad. So what helped it was talking about it, having the support of a teacher there who was going to listen and understand me, not feel like I was being judged or I was a lunatic. And that really helped. With OCD as well, there's a lot of time you have one OCD obsession, it sort of moves on to the next one, and you sort of stop doing that last one without even realising it. And in a way that helped, but then it leads on to another obsession, which at that time was my weight. I was obsessed with, I didn't want to become overweight or unhealthy or any of those things. I was really obsessed with what I looked like, and that led that on to that. But I wouldn't have got over that obsession if it wasn't for the support, the understanding, and talking to people about it, which is so key, because OCD people, in my opinion, especially in my case, are very good at hiding it and not letting people know. So if you can identify it and get it at the early state, it's much more better for that person going forward. Fourth question. Were there other children in the primary school with you with similar needs? Honestly, not that I know of. I can look back at the school and go, yes, you know, definitely. And it depends what school we're on about. So in primary school, I'd say definitely not that I was aware of, that I definitively knew, you know, he's autistic or she's autistic. You know, there was always rumours and things going around the class, but not specifically, because you're not really in the know, you know, about those things happening with other people. And hey, maybe that's something that needs to change so people feel more supported and feel that there's more people like them around them. In secondary school, I felt that there was a lot of people around me that had the same condition because I was in ASD unit. But what was, I felt, an error from the ASD unit was they'd slowly kick out the people that had issues or had signs of troubles, but the autistic people that were going to class and doing really well, you know, they remained in the unit, which ended up making you feel even worse, because then you were surrounded by these autistic people that could just go to class and get on with their lives and was doing better than you, and all the people that you could relate to were slowly getting kicked out, and you felt that there was only a matter of time and that was going to be you, and you were on a sort of limited time, you know, to be at that school, which makes you feel worse. It makes you scared to go to school, makes you scared of doing things, you know, remotely a little bit wrong. In my case, I was getting bullied. I didn't want to go into the classroom because of that. I told people that, and they still kicked me out. So not a great unit. And then my special educational needs school, I was around people that didn't have similar needs. You know, none of the people in my classroom, apart from one, was autistic, but they all had emotional behaviour, stress and traumatisation in the classroom, which was a lot different to what I was going through. So I suppose it's a yes and a no answer. You know, yes, there have been similarities, but every time there has been a similarity, they weren't there very long for me to befriend them, and if I did, it hurt even more because they were gone, which in one case it did happen, not for me, but a friend that was at the school when I was kicked out, and then he was kicked out slowly after. So yes and no, there were similarities, but they weren't welcomed very much, in my opinion. And the fifth and last question is, how did getting your labels affect you? What did you get your Diana Award for? So the Diana Award one I won't go over because I've already said that one. How did getting your labels affect you? To be honest, getting my labels was probably the best thing that could have happened for me. There's nothing worse than a child sat in the classroom thinking, what's wrong with me? Why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? And this is why so many late diagnoses are happening. And then when they are happening, those people are going at 50 years old, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Labels can be the greatest thing if you get the right label. There's no point trying to force a wrong label if you're just trying to get help as a parent point of view. If you just think, no, it's definitely this, and the doctor's telling you something else, it's probably better that you consider what they're saying. If you're dead against it and you want to carry on the path because that's firmly what you believe your child has got, then you carry on and do that. But it's so crucial and so important you get the right diagnosis, the right label. It has impacted me going through school. I was bullied a little bit, and I was kicked out of my last school because I weren't going to classes because of my labels, because I felt I was targeted. But it gave me a great sense of who I was and who I am, and it gives you that acceptance and that need to know who you are, and I think that is so important for a child. So guys, those are all the questions that were asked of me at Oxford Brookes. They are now answered. I hope you all enjoyed it, and guys, thank you for watching. Take care and goodbye for now.